Hey friends, I want to talk about a specific technique that I've used in my fiction that I call copying and pasting, where I use material from any number of things and adapt it into the current context of my story. So my novels or short stories or whatever it is take place in a specific setting with specific characters where there's a plot happening, there's a whole world, and that world works a certain way. And also, I want to make that world vibrant and believable and add a whole tapestry to the plot. It's not just the specific plot details or specific sentences that characters say. It's this whole, a really good story has this whole depth to it. And so sometimes it's helpful to weave things in that may not directly serve the plot or tell the story, but add what I call texture. And in any case, one way that I do that is by, quote, copy pasting something from one place into the story. And that requires a bit of transformation or transmutation where, I'm taking something from one context and adapting it to the context of my novel and my story. But, the really cool thing is it could be anything. It could be a memory that I had. It could be a description of a person that I met once or someone I see on the street. It could be a scene from a movie I watched once or from another story. Or it could be a story that a friend told me about their life, or a conversation that I overheard someone saying at a bar or some public place. And it could be from a video game I played once, or like really anything. It could be anything real that I've experienced. It could be something real that someone else experienced. It could be from some other story or video game or like a lyric or something. And then I adapt it to the setting of my story. And by bringing it into this context, it changes, right? So it might be based on some reality or some other story, but it's not just plagiarism. It's not copying per se. It's like great artists steal, and in the process of adapting it from whatever context it came from, real or fictional or whatever, mine or someone else's, it's transformed by being adapted into that world and being adapted into the world of my story through my own lens and my own heart. So I may be inspired by an experience that I had or an experience that a friend had or some memory that I had of a story that I watched once, but then I adapt it to that character and that world and that setting, and it takes on a new life. And, even if it was based on another story, someone may not recognize it at all because it's changed so dramatically. I might be remembering how some other character felt in some totally other story and adapting that to mine, and nobody will make the connection that I was thinking of this thing. And all the more so if it's an experience that I had or a story someone told me. I remember after I first started writing fiction, one of my friends reflected to me that they thought it was really important that I write fiction because people trust me. People tend to really trust me when they meet me, and they often will tell me things that they might not tell anyone else, and they might tell stories that really need to be heard or ought to be heard by the larger world, but they're stories that they themselves may not be able to tell because they're incredibly private or personal, or things would change in their life or whatever. But through the medium of fiction, the truth or wisdom of that story can be transmitted. I'm thinking now of my novel, A Portrait of the Escort as a Young Woman, which is about a fictional sex worker. But I had interviews with sex workers in researching that novel, and there are stories that they told me that they may not tell their friends or family members, but that really happened to them. And ones that you could kind of sound unbelievable, but that I wove into my novel with more or less adaptation. In some cases, taking things verbatim, but just changing the names or something like that. And that lent authority and believability and vibrancy to the larger story that I was trying to tell, and made the world more believable, and also transmitted stories that need to be heard, because not everyone has access to that experience or knows a sex worker or would hear about what that's like. And I realized that was actually one of the things that I think that book did as a service, is to, in hopefully a somewhat believable way, convey what it might be like to be a sex worker, even to people who may never have that experience or may never have friends who will tell them what that experience is like. And of course, I also had to make an interesting plot, and my character had a certain shape of a life and so on. And I could see someone quibbling about different things that happened in that novel and being like, oh, this isn't that believable or whatever. But the point is, that novel, amongst other things, I think one of the things it did as a service was to help cultivate theory of mind for that profession and what that might be like. And, this just is a profession that exists, and it's sort of hidden from society. It's underneath, it's in the underbelly of society, hidden in plain sight. And a lot of people aren't going to know anything about it. But that means that a whole aspect of reality is hidden from people in a way that, I don't know, I think leads to a lot of unkindness and a lot of misunderstandings. And so that wasn't my aim in writing that novel, but I've been happy to see that I think it might have that effect as a service. And that comes from the skill of copy pasting, where I did have conversations with sex workers, and I did record those conversations, and then I could incorporate some elements of things that they said with their permission into my novel. I could take this from that conversation, that from that conversation, and then I took experiences from my own life and adapted them into that setting. And some things are memories of my own, or stories that I'd heard from other friends, or what have you, and just wove it all in. And you can't tell in the end what came from where, and that's part of what makes it a story and makes it a world. And I love that. I love doing this. There's something so satisfying about the skill of, quote, copy pasting, of taking one thing from one context and adapting it into the context of my story. So I really enjoy doing this, and I've done it all over the place in my novels once I discovered it. I think it was my second novel. It wasn't that I really started to notice that I could do this. And yeah, it's been a lot of fun. Because you have a lot of freedom as a fiction author. Like, if I write a blog post that's what I call an informational blog post, or sort of nonfiction, then I'm in the realms of facts and reporting and saying what's true and helping people to understand something. And all of that doesn't lend itself to artistry in the same way, at least not the same kind of artistry. And so I've really enjoyed the creative liberties that I can take through using this skill in my fiction. If you write fiction yourself, I'd be curious to hear how you relate to this sort of thing, or what you call it, or if it reminds you of anything. But hope this is interesting, and sending you love.